Rings of Power Warhammer doesn't exist. There is nothing. No merch, no models, no Warhammer. Until now. Let's go on a journey of building, painting and a showcase of some of the very first Rings of Power models in existence that you can get your hands on. We're going to turn these into an epic cinematic Warhammer diorama. So strap in, hobbits, and let's dive into Middle-earth. It's been over 6 months since the first episode aired, and I'm finally ready to dive in and talk about the series on this channel. And in short, it was a mixed bag for me. But before we get started, this is obviously my opinion, whether popular or unpopular. Now, some things I really enjoyed and some things I wasn't a huge fan of. Some things took me right back to Peter Jackson's movies, and there were 3 or 4 accounts when I could see resemblances, while others I just really didn't understand. Now let's start with the Orcs. I thought the prosthetics, makeup and costumes for the Second Age Orcs really caught my attention and were exactly what you'd expect, rugged and ugly, and I love the story around them being the founders of Mordor. Now you're probably wondering, where did I get these minis? Well, they have been designed and printed by Sam from Forgemaster Miniatures, which might be new to you or they might not. Either way, I'm surprised that these models haven't been picked up by a larger organisation like Games Workshop, because they are awesome. I had the pleasure of speaking to Sam before making this video, and he really likes seeing converted miniatures on the tabletop, so giving people multiple pose options is what he wanted to do, and he certainly achieved that with these kits. The details on these models are incredible. It's almost picture perfect to the Amazon series. The snake-like skin hoods and cloaks, the bone helmets, the makeshift weapons with bits of metal, and all the facial expressions and details fit the aesthetic so well. On top of the Orcs Sam sent me, he also sent me his brand new Sylvan Elves, which, let me tell you, are off the scale cool. As I unpacked these models and began assembling them, I had so many choices of poses and arms and weapons, so every model could be different. I was a big fan of Rondir in the Amazon series. One of the things I did really like was the Elves armour, with the faded face on the wood, and Sam has designed this exceptionally. Once all the models had been built, I needed to get a base coat spray on them. Unfortunately, the shed has been a little out of action recently because my parents have just moved, so I had to get a makeshift HelloFresh box we had left over and construct a spray station outside in the garden. Now, these minis were an absolute joy to paint. The details on them are absolutely incredible, and they're going to look so good when we put them into a little diorama display piece. For those of you that are new around here and watching for the first time, welcome. Keith, my godfather, and I have been creating epic terrain and dioramas for my ever-growing army of Warhammer since I can remember. On this channel, we hope to bring you some of the best Middle-earth content you've ever seen. Take a look, and if you like what you see, smash the subscribe button. But for now, let's get back to painting. After an undercoat of black, I then layered Cygor brown contrast paint to start with. This was only really my second time at experimenting with contrast paints, but I still can't really get to grips with them. I then switched back to my more traditional approach of painting with base paints and layer paints, switching it up with lots of different browns, using Karake Stone for the base of the bones and skull helmets. I used Ratskin Flesh for the skin and Leadbelcher for the weapons. Another character that I also liked and found really interesting was Adar, the leader of the Orcs. Forgemaster have done their own version of this, the Corrupted Elf, which really depicts the character. For those of you that are interested, I will put a full list of paints I used in the description below. I did trial a few different techniques and paints this time round, just to give them a little differentiation. I gave one orc a greeny flesh tone and another a darker brown skin fade, just so they didn't all look the same. Once I'd made some decent progress with the orcs, I moved on to the elves. starting with base colours of brown, green and grey. I noticed from watching clips back of the series their cloaks are more of a grey / bluey colour instead of the standard elven green you expect. So I tried to replicate this by using Mechanicus standard grey as a base and highlights of dark Reaper. I also lightly dry brushed Mechanicus standard grey onto the breastplate of the elves' armour and then gradually got lighter until I was happy with the effect. For the skin on the elves, I used Cadian Fleshtone with highlights of Kislev Flesh. With all the models having different poses, I felt like they all had their own personality and needed details like painting their eyes. For any of you out there that have painted eyes, you'll feel my pain with how difficult it is. The best method I've found is to start with a small dot of white paint, then a very thin line of black does the trick. They might not be the best painted eyes ever, but from a distance it really makes them come alive. Now I knew I wanted to do something slightly different with these models, on the bases specifically, than my standard Middle-earth bases with sand and grass tufts, so I ordered a care package from Geek Gaming and picked up a few things I hadn't tried out, including the pine forest ground cover. I know Zorbazorb has talked about this and he's used it multiple times, so I was really interested to give it a shot myself. I really thought this was a good effect from the moment Arondir and Theo are running through the forest away from the orcs. So I applied this to all the models using fast drying basing glue and I think they've turned out great. Let me know in the comments how you guys base your miniatures, I'd be really interested to know. The last stage of painting that I do on all my miniatures, and this is one little detail I think makes a huge difference to minis on and off the tabletop, and it's painting the rim of the base. Now not many people do it, not everyone does it, but this is my go-to standard. I use Steel Legion Drab as a brown edging effect, and it just makes the miniatures stand out that little bit extra. Finally, let's add these models to a little diorama. This piece is one I had already created and used for Radagast's sleigh, so I just replaced the models and dusted off the cobwebs for this video. Make sure you go and check out Forgemaster Miniatures and look at what's on offer. I've included all the links below to the website and Etsy shop if you want to take a closer look. Sam, if you're watching this, I shotgun the first Galadriel and Numenor models when you get around to them. If you've enjoyed this and want to see more videos, smash that subscribe button and help us make it to 1K. Remember, if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to.